Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for another OC Spotlight. The one show, maybe the only show, that shows you the most incredible people doing the most amazing things. And today, I always say this is the biggest or best one we've done. This is certainly the best one we've done in a while. For those of you that love going out to see musicals like I do, there's a big one playing. Our last guest on our last show was saying, I'm going tonight. The WIZ is playing at Segerstrom Center, and we're proud to say that we have the producer of the WIZ here, who actually started life, grew up here in Orange County. How about that for a connection? So welcome, if you will, Brian Anthony Moreland. Welcome, sir.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So tell us, how does a kid from Orange County, you can't make it all the way to the bright lights of Broadway, it's all the way on the other side of the country here. Tell us your journey. How did you start? And were you a theater kid? You must have been growing up here.
I was a theater kid. You know, I was born right there in La Mirada, California, and I had a really, really active mom who allowed me to be a part of the performing arts. I had a third grade teacher who asked if I could be in the school play. My mother said yes. My teacher asked if she could make the costume, and my mother said yes.
Wow.
So that's how I found myself in a school play, playing Santa Claus in a wonderful play called Be What You Want to Be.
Okay. All right.
I tell you, I can't remember anything that happened once the lights went on and the lights came back down. I just knew that I loved the theater.
Well, I did too. I'm sorry to say I didn't make it to Broadway here, but I loved going to see theater. And in high school, I was in the theater productions and all that kind of stuff. Came to California with grand dreams of being an actor, writer, producer. Instead, I'm running a podcast channel here in Orange County here because I also loved radio. But
oh wow,
so
that's awesome.
That's how I got into all this stuff here. But so you had me at Theater Kids here. I remember what that's like, hanging out, doing productions, putting on plays, putting on musicals, all that kind of stuff. I just adored doing that. But I don't see a lot of that here in Orange County. Now we do have a high school for the performing arts, so I think that has created more. I think we're one of the few counties that has that sort of fame-like school where you can opt out of regular school and get admitted to the performing arts school here. And I know there are some kids that have gone to Broadway from that. But was the journey easy and straight? La Mirada, was there a lot of kids? Was there a lot of opportunity? Did you know anybody that did this for a living here?
I didn't know anybody that did it for a living, but at the time that I was growing up in California, they had a great deal of what they used to call CLOs, or Civic Light Operas.
Oh, yeah, right.
San Jose Civic Light Opera and, like, Fullerton Civic Light Opera, and like Orange County for the Performing Arts, and La Mirada Playhouse was there.
That's true.
There, actually, as a matter of fact. The Dorothy Chandler Pavilion there. And so it was really, really fantastic because it had a lot going on at that particular point in time for the art scene.
Mm-hmm. And so your parents didn't say, well, this is fun as a third grader, but you got to go make a living, like my parents said. Don't you can't do this for your life. Come on. Was anybody pulling you back, or everybody just saying, no, go?
No, I didn't have that. As long as I kept my studies up, which I did, which was really fortunate to get me into school. And once that happened, they just kept leaning into it, and I got very lucky. That's it. I got very lucky. I started out on the stage and then moved over to producing. I spent 15 years on the stage, on and off in national tours and bouncing around from California to Wisconsin to Mexico to Montana to Idaho to New York, back and forth. And then I got into producing, and I just absolutely loved it.
So is it like the Broadway musical Rent? I mean, you just literally came and lived with a bunch of other starving artists and just took any job you could to get onto Broadway. How did you break in? Did you just get in a car one day and go there? And
I went to the University of Hartford in Connecticut. And when I finished with school, I came to New York City, as everyone is supposed to do.
Right.
And when that happened, I came to New York, and I probably lasted a little less than 3 weeks on my first journey. And then I called my mother, and I said, Mom, I got to come home. She said, why? I said, because I don't mind auditioning.
We don't need you.
Yeah.
Stay.
I said, Mom, I don't mind auditioning, but I definitely can't just sit all day and not be a part of the process.
Yeah.
So I came home and went back to school, and I went to a school back in California called the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Oh,
At that time, it was in Hollywood, California.
Yeah, sure.
And that school, I had a teacher there who said, you should really dance, because if you dance, you'll get your equity card very quickly.
Ah.
And that was Teresa Hayes Clark. And she gave me the courage, and I went to dance class, and I got my equity card, and I picked up in the tour of Cats, and I was working ever since.
What a brilliant idea! Because for those that don't know, you get one shot to get an equity card. You get like an equity waiver, right? In some production. So if you don't have a union card, you can do a gig. Is it one time? If somebody will hire you, and then that gets you the equity card, then you can apply for an equity card. Is that how it works?
More or less, yeah. More or less, you're kind of right. Yeah.
Because I know people do the same thing for for acting or for music or whatever. You've got to get that union card to get all the union jobs, but there's a waiver for your first job, basically. And so how do you get somebody to hire you if you're not a union person? You're saying one of the easier ways is because they always need dancers.
Yeah, they always needed male dancers at that time.
Okay.
So it was a good way in.
So you were one of the cats jumping around on stage, and
I was.
What a cool production that is!
Many moons ago, and many less pounds.
Okay. And did you just do it on Broadway, or did you go on one of the touring companies?
I was in the San Francisco touring company of Cats in the last equity production, and that was fun.
Wow.
And then that was kind of my end of my performing, the culmination of my performing stuff.
Right.
And I started doing more national tours, finished that, and then went into producing, and got my first Broadway solo credit as a lead producer on a play called Thoughts of a Colored Man.
Wow. So, all right, you just say this so casually, like everybody who's a dancer says, oh, now I'll go be a producer. That's a huge jump. That's a huge jump. There's a million dancers. There's a million actors that would love to be writers, directors, producers. How do you make that giant leap? I knew you could leap high because you're in Cats, but how do you make that leap? That's even higher.
Well, you know what? I was, funny story. I'll try to make it very short. I was living in London, and I had moved for love, and a friend of mine sent me a play, and the play, I read the play. I said, what do you want to know? She said, can I do it? And I said, well, if you can see the world through that lens, do the play.
Yeah.
And the play happened to be Thoughts of a Colored Man, and I said, could I be in it? She said, no. If I do the play, the playwright already has it fully cast. I said, okay.
And you're an African American, so you said, well, I should be in this production here, right?
I should be in it.
Right.
Well, one thing led to another. I found myself back in the United States and back in New York City, and they were doing a workshop of that play, and somebody dropped out. I dropped in and fell in love with this play, absolutely fell in love with it. When the workshop was over, that company was no longer going to take the play forward, and I turned to the playwright, and I asked him, may I produce your play? And he said yes. And
why would he say yes? You're like, what? Show me your credits. Show me you can rent a room and bring in an audience and fill a stadium or whatever, fill a room here. I mean, that's a pretty big leap of faith.
It was a big leap of faith for him. His name was Keenan Scott II. And Keenan said, if you love the play as much as I do, then I'll take a chance on you.
Wow.
And he did. And 5 years later, we ended up on Broadway.
Talk about that process just a little bit, because I remember reading about, it's kind of a sad story, the guy that produced Rent went through workshops for years with this thing, and he had this vision of this musical, and did he like die on the opening night or something, or right before it opened or something? It took him years of workshopping this thing, and he finally got it on Broadway, and I thought he died or something right before. I don't know if you know that story or not, but that's a grueling process. That's not a
very.
Go ahead.
It can be a very hard process. It can be a very hard process. Essentially, what I did from that particular one, once Keenan said yes to me, I started to knock on every single door I could find and asking people for money.
Yeah.
Everyone. I asked everyone I knew for money, and I got up enough money to put together what they call a 29-hour workshop of it.
Okay.
And that workshop...
so it's like sort of a showcase to show other maybe investors?
Like
yeah, right.
Yeah, like a showcase to show it, fellow co-producers, investors, other theaters to see if they might be interested in allowing this play to be there.
Right.
Well, that particular workshop presentation got me another workshop at the Arena Stage in Washington, D.C. They gave us space for 2 weeks to work on the play.
Wow.
And then the New York Theater Workshop came to see the workshop in Washington, D.C., and they gave us 2 weeks to work on the play.
Wow.
And then the Baltimore Center Stage and Syracuse Stage came together and said, our two theaters would like to share this play and produce it together with you.
Wow. What,
And
out of how many
meant
millions of plays? There's a million workshops. There's a million plays. Everybody's got an idea.
It's a million of them.
Yeah.
It's a million of them. But I tell you, it was a really special play, and it was something that I had never seen before, and I was moved. I was so moved. That's what made me do that play.
And sticking there with it for year after year after year. All right, so you get this thing out and launch it, and I assume it was a success. It played in Broadway then somewhere?
It did. It did. It was one of the first plays to reopen Broadway right after the pandemic at the
wow.
Golden Theater.
Wow, okay. That famous Broadway, along the way there. It's been a million years since I've been back to this. Do you still, after, I'm going to date myself, when the play's over, do you all go to Sardi's and everybody claps when you come in and put your
100%.
pictures?
You still go to Sardi's, and Sardi's is still open on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and they still do actors half-price meals.
There you go.
Actors. So if you have a union card, show your union card to your waiter or waitress at Sardi's on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and you get half off.
I was an entertainment publicist later in life, and so we had the opportunity. Leslie Uggams, when she was on Broadway, I got to see that happen when she was in Jerry's Girls.
Wow.
And so walking in after the performance, everybody applauds, and you got her picture up on the wall and all that stuff. So yeah, that's part of the whole theater traditions. There's a lot of traditions in the theater. All right, so that's pretty impressive. A kid from California makes it. Sheer grit, determination, luck, love for what you're doing, and you launch this play. That starts a career as a producer. That's a pretty hefty job here. And you rattled off a couple of the things you've done. Tell me about producing Othello, Shakespeare's Othello on Broadway with, let's see, a guy named Denzel Washington. I think I've heard of him. And who is the other one? Jake, I can't ever pronounce his name. Gyllenhaal?
Gyllenhaal. Shakespeare's Othello was directed by Tony Award-winning director Kenny Leon. It starred Tony Award-winning actor and Oscar Award-winning actor Denzel Washington and Tony and Oscar-nominated Jake Gyllenhaal. And it was a wonderful play. We became the highest-grossing revival in Broadway history. And that play played at the Barrymore Theater, and I was very fortunate enough that I
the Barrymore Theater, the Barrymores, the John Barrymores, and all that stuff here.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Named after their great grandmother, Ethel Barrymore.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. All right. So, what's that experience like? Is Denzel Washington supposed to be pretty intense to work with here? And
it's not really intense. It's really about being special. He's a walking light. There's no one else on earth that is like Denzel Washington. He's kind, and he's caring, and he's considerate, and he's giving, and he's so supportive that I wish I could name all of the things publicly that he's done for Broadway and done for the world, but specifically done for me. It's really quite remarkable.
And Jake's quite a hot actor too here. I mean, you've got a couple of hot commodities here. Was it difficult to produce? Was it difficult?
You'll never find a greater friend than Jake Gyllenhaal. It's such a special, sweet soul who is immensely talented, immensely kind, and the best leader you can ever ask for in a company of actors.
And so now you're I assume you produce other things along the way here too. So now the WIZ, how do you get into musicals? That's a whole different genre here.
Oh yeah, a couple more elements. You've got people singing and dancing. It's wonderful.
Yeah, right. I get back to your dancing roots here, but yeah.
Yeah. So the WIZ came around. It was just time. The WIZ hadn't been on Broadway in quite some time.
No.
Actually, since 1988, and so it was time to bring the show back. And we launched a national tour of it last year and made Broadway a stop. And so we stopped on Broadway, played there for 22 weeks, and put it back on the road. And now it's going back across America again with a brand new company. The WIZ is directed by Shelley Williams and has choreography by Jaquel Knight, the young man who you might know his work from Single Ladies from Beyonce's video.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He did all of that work. So that's his work you're seeing on the stage this evening. And we put it back on the road again now, and so it's back there and playing at the Segerstrom Center for the Arts.
And it's had a nice run. As I said, kiddingly, the guest we had here just before, it was we do a show in restaurants and wines and stuff here in California, and he owns a winery. He said, "Oh my God, tell him I'm going to the WIZ tonight here." It's a hot ticket to get to. I'm assuming it's hard to get. They probably even sold out or whatever here. But are there still seats available for shows? This runs through another 3-4 days or something here.
And it runs up 3-4 days and runs all the way through January 25th. But if you missed it in Costa Mesa, you can still stay in California and see it. It goes up to San Jose Center for the Performing Arts, January 27th to February 1st.
There you go. And what's it like to do a revival? I always wonder, because so many iconic productions. I never saw it on Broadway, but I obviously saw the movie, and you got Diana Ross and Michael Jackson. How do you get those images out of people's heads and say, well, look at it a different way?
You don't. You embrace it. You embrace it. You embrace it. I mean, The Wiz is a retelling of the classic Wizard of Oz story by Frank Baum. And The Wiz, the movie version, which, as you so eloquently put it, starred the one and only Diana Ross.
Yeah.
And she was a great Dorothy. And you just really embrace the history and the legacy of that. And so we tried to do that with this production. Try to really bring in what has made The Wiz so unique, and then also offer it for a new generation of people to enjoy.
And what is it that makes it unique? Is it that it's for a new generation? It's showing it as a, dare I say, diverse tale. I know diverse is a word we're trying to get rid of these days here, but I grew up on The Wizard of Oz. I still watch it every time I see it on television. I'm of that era that grew up watching that show. And yet by retelling it as an urban tale, it opens up a whole different audience to it here, it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can put a little soul music in there and put a new rhythm and a little
more pop to the dances and stuff here and everything. Yeah. Well, I think
it's great.
I look forward. I don't know if I can squeeze any tickets in onto this thing here, but I'll love to see it if it's available. And for those who can still get a ticket, please do. Where do they go? Just Segerstrom Center, and it must be everywhere you get tickets for those kind of productions.
That's right. You can go there, or you can go to the WIZmusical.com as well.
And you can find out where it plays. And how long is this going to run? Is this going to be, you're going to go all across the country, all around the world?
Oh, yes, we go all across the country again, all the way again. Yes. What's
that like to be a gypsy and travel from city to city and put on a show here? I mean, that is true acting at its best here.
It is. It's hard work, but very rewarding. When the lights go up on the stage and the lights go down on the audience, and you see a show, the audience is in awe. The cast members are thrilled to have a house full of people packed to see them.
Yeah.
I tell you, there's no greater joy than rehearsing the show, putting the show up, and then watching the show take its bow and the audience go wild because they spent 2.5 hours with you.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
That's it. And then to take it in the old fashions, like the Old West, and then to pack up the company and move on to, your
the
next city, and unpack and go through all that stuff.
Move right on to the next city.
Doing the next thing here. I think that's fantastic. Well, so much pleasure to have you on this show. For anybody out there who dreams big, every kid, so many theater kids, all have these dreams of maybe not being a producer. That's a pretty high dream, but to be a part of a production and to get in there, you show it happen, and you make it sound so easy. I just did it. Your teacher asked you to be in it, and little did you know that moment that she was directing your whole life here. She was showing you a whole new path. Well,
she really did.
It's amazing. Do you ever come back to Orange County and do productions here or workshops or anything else? Any way people can get to meet all these kids out there saying, "Oh my God, I want to meet this guy."
I have something in the works with Debbie Allen at the moment, and so we will be there very shortly.
Well, Debbie Allen, there's the epitome of fame and all the TV show and the movies and all that stuff here, and she certainly gives back and does lots of. I've never met her, but I know she does lots of dance classes and give back and stuff here. So, yeah, come back to Orange County. Bring Debbie Allen and teach kids how to get to Broadway.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, thanks so much. Once more, The Wiz. We're privileged to have with us a real-life success story here. Brian Anthony Moreland, who is the producer of The Wiz that's currently playing in Segerstrom Center through January 25th. Did I get that right? January 25th.
You did.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining us. And stick around after. I'll ask you another question after. We'll end the show with that. Thanks so much for joining us here. Well, there you have it. We're always trying to spotlight local talent, local people doing amazing things. How about that? Going from La Mirada to Broadway, coming back to Orange County as a producer of the WIZ. Those are the stories we hear on the OC Spotlight each and every week. Come back and join us on OC Talk Radio, Orange County's only community radio station.